Yeah, that was a part of what I was doing most of last week in Kigali. But I also had to sit down with the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. I believe that's his first one-on-one since he became minister, and I was fortunate enough to get that privilege. I'll give you that in a bit. But first of all, let's discuss what happened also on Friday, which is Nigeria's inflation number. We saw that, and I think when you read through a lot of different platforms, it seems people are still trying to grasp or maybe relate with what it says. So, of course, there was a surge in headline inflation year on year. That's expected. Because you know the troubles that the world has at this time, the geopolitical issues going on. Even the United States is facing it. Nobody dares to reduce interest rates at this time. But let's see if we can try to understand and highlight some of those points from inflation. We have Dr. Muda Yusuf right here in the studio. Of course, we know Dr. Muda Yusuf is the CEO and Managing Director of CPP. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, and welcome
from Kigali. Thank you. I was hobnobbing with the CEOs and the president.
Yeah.
Laddie promised when I come back, he'll be calling me in his CEO.
Of course. It was nice. It was nice.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So we saw inflation, and it didn't come as a surprise.
Yeah.
In fact, I think some people thought it would go higher. Looking at the geopolitics and how that's affecting energy, transport, and it all boils down, to everything. So I don't think that number came as...
No, not at all. And just as you said, in fact, some of us were even expecting a higher number, given the fact that the energy situation has been very, very challenging. It affected transportation costs, it affected operating costs.
And still affecting.
Of course. I mean, today, crude oil price has gone to 110.
Yes.
That's a lot. So we still have tougher days ahead, arising from these geopolitical issues. But talking generally about inflation, we have seen a consistent disinflation, which means deceleration, from 2024 up until March this year. 2024 we saw inflation around 30, 34 and all
That's
of that.
That's the year-on-year inflation.
Yes, year-on-year. On 2025, it came down to the 20s. So from January 2025 up until February this year, we had a very significant deceleration. Actually, in February, we had the lowest, which was 15%, our headline inflation. The main turning point was as a result of this Iran war. And that triggered what we had in March and in April. And even then, it was quite marginal, actually. Because even for the April inflation we are talking about 15.69. In March, it was about 15.38, so still very marginal. And if you look at the month-on-month,
I think,
Dr.
Yusuf, that is where a lot of people are having difficulty to understand. Now, we see month-on-month food inflation dropped to 3.63% from 4.17%. Core inflation, which is excluding energy and agriculture, also dropped to 1.03% from 4.03%. So I think it's just so difficult for people to understand how come month-on-month we have a deceleration.
No, when the shock of the Iran war was more pronounced in March. That was when all these problems started. This invasion or aggression started, I think, February ended.
28, yeah.
So the impact was very profound in March. So between March and April, because we are comparing one base to the other, so we have been seeing a slight deceleration. And that is what accounted for the deceleration month-on-month. And if you also look at year-on-year, 2025 April, headline inflation was 23.7%. 2026 April is 15.69%. Food inflation, April 2025, it was 24.6%. April 2026, 16%. Core inflation, April 2025, it was 26%. April 2026, 15.8%. So when you even compare with last year, there is a marked difference in terms of deceleration. That is not to say that prices are not still high. It's still an issue that a lot of citizens are worried about. We need to do something. But Speaking to the data, we have seen a significant deceleration between 2024 and 2026, significant. The main turning point, which is what we are dealing with now, is this Iran war. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be abating, because we are seeing some very serious rhetorics now. We are seeing another attack on UAE, drone attack on all of that. Crude oil price has gone to 110. So we just pray that something happens, at least on the diplomatic front, to ensure that we see a moderation. But that is the biggest issue that is driving inflation. Now, you know what energy is? It affects transportation costs. Transportation costs affects food inflation. It affects production costs because of you are using generator for diesel and all of that. It's also affecting operating costs, even for those who are not in production. Cost of operation has gone up significantly. Then we have this challenge of shipping costs. Because of this Strait of Hormuz, shipping costs has gone up by about 50%. That also has some inflationary implication. Then, of course, you have issues of the marine insurance. Marine insurance has gone up between 200 to 300% because of all these challenges, this geopolitical issue. So the biggest issue around inflation now has to do with the geopolitical factors. And
I'm sure, the MPC starts tomorrow.
Yes.
Ends on Wednesday. Of course, this is a major consideration for every country, not just Nigeria.
No, it's a global issue. I mean, everywhere, this thing is driving up prices. But I also want to caution the CBN.
I know, you're always speaking for the manufacturers.
Yes, we don't want them to tighten interest rates, because we don't want to compound the problem of the real sector of entrepreneurs generally. Because if you tighten interest rate, it's not going to bring down crude oil price. It's not going to bring down transportation costs. It's not going to bring down, all these costs that are associated with all these geopolitical problems. It will only exacerbate the challenges of those who are entrepreneurs. So for me, I think the tightening as it is now is okay for now. We should just leave it the way it is.
Are you talking to Mr. Kotosu at this time?
Of course.
Because he stands when it comes to interest rates.
Yes. Because it's not easy. Because we don't want things that will also create challenges of, loan defaults. We also have our sovereign debt. The cost of debt service is very troubling. So if you have high interest rate again, that will also further compound.
You mean if you have higher interest rate?
Exactly. It's already high anyway.
But a lot of people have the notion that with oil now at 110, it means that Nigeria's revenue should be increasing. So perhaps if there's an effective use of that extra, it could help to be a buffer even to the manufacturers. It's cool. Yeah, that is true. That's a very valid argument. For instance, if you have more impact in the area of electricity, for instance, all these challenges around the energy cost of diesel and all of that, I mean, it will significantly moderate. If you don't have to rely so much on the use of generator, either for the operations in the offices or for production. And if you have a lot more impact, particularly by the subnationals on mass transit, particularly intra-city, that could also bring down the cost of, transportation. And this windfall, you can use part of it to even develop our rail system. Because rail is the cheapest form of interstate transportation. It's the cheapest mode of even the movement of cargo within the country. So we need to do a lot more in all those areas to address the issue of transportation costs and the issue of cost of production as a result of this high energy cost, and the issue of the cost of operations of businesses generally. Because those are the major, troubling points that. And this thing, I mean, if done properly, could trickle down to the consumer purchasing power and all of that, and even inflation. The prices. Of course. Because if manufacturers have a buffer, then they don't have a lot of reasons to pass down expensive commodities.
Exactly. If you're able to bring down energy costs, particularly through the electricity channel, if you're able to improve on transportation, by the provision of, more public mass transit by all these our sub-nationals, rather than them building airports and building airlines, they should provide more buses for the citizens so that people can, move around with a lot of ease. Those are some of the things that we need to do. And of course, we have the security problem too, which is also affecting food supply. That is also a major issue. And thank God for recent developments, between the U.S. and our security agencies. I mean, some of the wins we got.
All over. But unfortunately, Dr. Muda, as we were celebrating that, then we had more kidnappings and also,
Well, we will get there. When you are dealing with asymmetric warfare, it's a very, very challenging thing. Because we are not dealing with a conventional war here. We are dealing with asymmetric war. We are dealing with some guerrilla fighters and so on. You don't know where they will spring up from. So it's a very challenging thing. But I think we are making some progress as far as that is concerned.
And should we be looking at maybe a long-term plan for this escalating Middle East war? Because, we thought that with one round of talks, the U.S. and Iran would have an agreement. We've seen first round, second round. The third, I think, is we don't even hear about it anymore. So it does seem like, like the Russia and Ukraine war, the world had to adjust, especially to grain, wheat, and all of that. Should we be thinking of a long-term plan, assuming that all of these talks do not work? Should we look for ways to hedge Nigeria?
We have to. We have to. Because the way it is going, each time you feel that we are seeing a moderation in the conflict, suddenly there's an escalation. And I think we need to begin to think of something more enduring. And that is why it is important to use part of this windfall to see how we can, cushion the effects, of this escalating cost. Because the cost of living remains a major problem in Nigeria and in many parts of the world. And governments all over the world are taking some steps. We need to support our farmers a lot more to ensure that the cost of their inputs, we are now in rainy season, planting season, we need to support them with lower cost of inputs. I've talked already about issues of transportation. We need to invest a lot more in public transportation so that the citizens rely less on private sector provided means of transportation. We need to see how we can do some heavy lifting in the area of electricity, because I know it's a major area that we need to address. I know the government is struggling with this subsidy problem in the electricity sector. The reform is a very challenging one, but in the meantime, if there are some heavy lifting that the government needs to do to support the electricity sector, I think the government needs to do it. Notwithstanding the fact that we are talking about reform, we are talking about decentralization, but there is some heavy lifting that needs to be done so that at least we can have better access to electricity. If you have that, the energy component of this crisis will be significantly moderated.
And when you attend meetings such as the Africa CEO and AFDB, Afrexim Bank, you hear a lot of need for integration. Because what I lack in Nigeria, Kenya might have, I guess if we had better coordination and integration of resources on the continent, some of these things can actually be dealt with, without looking for dollar and things like that.
Yes, there's a lot of value in integration. If we're a lot more integrated, the need to depend on countries outside the continent will be much less. But
and that will reduce costs.
It will reduce costs.
Straits of Hormuz will be less significant, to Africans.
It will reduce costs significantly. And there's a whole lot that we can do in terms of synergy among African countries. But there has to be serious political commitment, to support connectivity. Because you cannot integrate properly, economically, if there is no connectivity. So we need a lot of connectivity in terms of, road network, rail network, shipping, aviation. That connectivity is very important. And I also noticed that issues around visas also came up.
Yes.
In Kigali.
And Nigeria has now given a 30-day, that's a month.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's quite easy going into Kigali as an African or as a Nigerian. Exactly. You just buy your tickets and then you now hop in, and I hope it can be like that for most countries.
They make a lot of difference.
Yes, it does.
It helps the economies of those countries. It helps the hospitality industry, So a lot more countries should do that so that we have a lot more ease in terms of movement across the country.
I can tell that. I mean, I know how much I spent on transportation, just going from the hotel to the convention center every day, and maybe sometimes you want to go out and see the city. I can imagine how much I spent. So the small businesses, the food that I ate, the money in transport, in hotels, those are businesses that have been affected.
A lot of value to it.
Yes.
And even beyond the continent. Who says that even for people who are carrying whether EU visa, US visa, who says you cannot give them visa free? Let them come and spend the dollar.
Come and spend the money.
Yes. You should make it easy for a lot more countries.
Yes, I saw a lot of foreigners at the airport here in Nigeria. The visa on arrival area was really busy. Yeah, so I think if that is eased, we'll have more foreigners coming to the country.
More foreigners will come in,
and
they will come here, they will spend, they will invest.
We don't have to wait for diaspora. Let them bring the money.
Of course, of course. We need to ease movement.
Yes, we really have to. Thank you so much, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Always a pleasure having these conversations with you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.